This is Rogers TV.
This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
The opinions expressed in the following programs are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect those of Rogers Cable or Rogers TV.
Welcome to another exciting episode of In Conversation with Alethia. I'm your host, Alethia O'Hara-Stephenson. In each episode, I sit down with incredible individuals from the community who are doing amazing things. Each show will be sure to educate you, inspire you, and empower you. In this episode, I am honored to have an amazing guest who is doing amazing things in our community, not just here in Canada, but across the border in the US. He has been a champion for Emancipation Day. He has been a champion for honoring our Black veterans and so much more. His name is Dewitt Lee. Welcome, Dewitt, to In Conversation with Alethia.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Glory to God. It's an honor to be here. And you know, I could say a lot of those things all about you as well. You are a true mover and shaker, and you represent your community so well. So I'm just grateful every time I get a chance to connect with you.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you. And that's a nice segue into the fact that we've shared conversations on so many different platforms. And I've talked about the fact that you've inspired me in the past, especially with, the proclamation of Black History Month and raising of the Pan-African flag. But before we get into all of that, I'd love to dive into you as the man, you as an individual. What inspires you to go out? And I'm going to use your tagline. On your Instagram page, you have, let's build, let's rise, let's do it. So indeed. What inspires you to be the man that you are and to go out and advocate for our community the way you do?
Well, I think I may have, I have to give credit just to avoid any plagiarism charge. Let's build comes from the Bible, Nehemiah. He was given a responsibility to rebuild some broken walls in Jerusalem. And, and he risked his life and he, risked his profession. And he, he got on the wrong side of, some powerful people and stepped on toes and really rallied people, defeated people, really lifted up a defeated people. And, so I get my inspiration from those kind of stories. And also, I'm a prayer warrior. There's no question about it. And so I get my daily assignments every morning when I get down and get into prayer. And I just go forth and execute, trusting that God is going to be with me in every step of the way.
I love that. And I love the confidence in speaking about your faith and God. And that's something that, publicly not many people are comfortable sharing. So I truly appreciate that. As a spiritual person myself, I appreciate the fact that you can authentically share who you are and what inspires you to be the man that you are today. So thank you for that educational piece.
Oh, indeed. And it is actually a part of the Emancipation Month space and platform is to allow people of African descent who are believers a special hallowed space to celebrate and thank our God for delivering us from not one Pharaoh, which is the Passover celebration, right? Jews have Passover, and that's from being freed from one Egyptian Pharaoh. But our ancestors were, in bondage by multiple pharaohs,
right?
And so Emancipation Month is being positioned so that the story of our faith can be spoken about because we serve this God, in Ethiopia long before we were put on boats, and we were reconnected with the Word here in America, and we had a different way of living out that Word. We were forced to live out that Word, in front of cameras, right? We were forced to love our neighbor in front of cameras. We were our enemy in front of cameras, right? And it says, "Blessed those who are persecuted," and we live that out in truth and spirit. So we have a special relationship, and it's been bundled a lot with others who worship, who are Christians. And I believe that there needs to be a sacred space carved out for our ancestors who carried that word and lived that word in truth in real life.
That's amazing. And I thank you for sharing that history with us. And for the benefit of our viewers, when we talk about Emancipation Month, do you want to just dive into some of the facts around Emancipation Month?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Emancipation Month. It's it's something that has truly shaped my life, has conformed my life and transformed my life. It's in lives of people all over the world. It started off with just me wanting to raise that flag in honor of Emancipation Day, and I felt like our community deserved it. The Toronto community deserved it. And being born in Toronto but built in Buffalo, I've been sort of incubated in a very Pan-African space, right, as a young man. Buffalo is home to one of the largest Juneteenth celebrations in the world and one of the largest Kwanzaa celebrations in the world. And so I've been embedded in that community for many years of my life. And so the timing, interesting enough, for this flag raising was all divine intervention, because I had many years where I could have begun pushing the city to do something like that, but it was just something about that particular year, 2016, that I felt called to do it, and I got denied. Right, wow. The city of Toronto said no, and listen, it's not the first time the city of Toronto said no to something. Right. And so if people could take a peek into my inbox, they would know what kind of activist I was, what kind of catalyst of real change. Right, a lot happens behind the scenes, and I have very, very honest and frank conversations, and sometimes it gets a little aggressive with the power to bend things in our favor, and to make sure that we are included and respected. And so I was denied because there was no precedence. There was no Canadian precedence for this flag ever being lifted up on Canadian soil. And so I had to flood their inbox with examples of other cities that have embraced this 103-year-old flag now, a flag founded by the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey and members and hundreds of thousands of members of the UNIA that decided in 1920 that these three colors would represent people of African descent around the world. And so they told me no.
Yep, absolutely. You touch on, the significance and the importance of that flag, because that flag itself carries a special meaning.
I would say those colors have, it was the first time we had a flag that we could fly that united us all, right? Especially when you look at it from a global perspective, we have, even in Canada, right, Toronto, we have, Grenadians and Jamaicans and Trinidadians and, and we all have these flags, right? But we should be unified. We should be, but we should have something that represents where all of our descendants come from, right? Which is Africa. So something that unites us all is more necessary now than ever. And so after pushing the city of Toronto, they finally agreed to allow me to do it. And I had to pick the last Sunday that was in the month, and that was August 28th. Okay. And so here I am now with maybe a week or two to invite the community in for this historical moment, right? Which was taken as almost an insult by many people, right? The fact that I only had a week head's notice, a lot of leaders, Black leaders in our community, who I counted on to be present with me, declared that wasn't enough time for them to do anything, and they and I had to stand in that moment alone, and it was terrifying, because it was so big. The moment was so big, and I'd never. I mean, I almost maybe I never thought it could even happen. But once the approval came in, the gravity of the situation started to weigh on me, and it was the biggest thing I've ever been involved with. I mean, it was just so emotional and so culturally significant, and I was looking for the support that I thought I really needed, and I looked to the hills where my help came, and it worked out. But so I picked the last Sunday, and the last Sunday was August 28th, and what I had to do was now I had to connect the dots from August 1st to August 28th, right? Like how do you make something an Emancipation Day event on August 28th, right? It just felt like it was sort of worlds apart. And I was like, what do I? So I start Googling that date, August 28th, to find something that I can use as a significance to be able to say, this is why I connected the 1st to the 28th. And I'm finding all these U.S. dates of significance. And to me, I was like, I know my Canadian people, and I know that we want Canadian history to stand on, right? We're hungry to learn about our own history. And so I had to continue rejecting these U.S. dates of significance. And there's many of them, right? There's many of them. Was Obama, and there was, there was just so many other ones that I could have chosen, but I just would not settle on anything that was American. And I came across the signing of the British Abolition Act, which is what we call, is why we have an Emancipation Day. And there are 2 dates on that bill. This is from 1800s. This is from the 1800s, right? So obviously August 1st was on there, 1834. But there was another date on there, the day that they signed it. And that was in 1833, the year before. And they actually signed that bill on August 28th.
Wow. Divine indeed.
So in that moment, I said, hallelujah. I said, it's an Emancipation Month. And we called that event the closing ceremonies of the first Emancipation Month in the world. And that's how Emancipation Month began.
That's amazing. And so prior to Emancipation Month, you actually advocated to have Emancipation Day proclaimed. Is that correct? And looks like we ran into some technical difficulties, so we will give Dewitt, yes, we will take a quick break, and we will come back in a few moments.
Is there a lot of pressure on this young fighter here tonight?
Fighting is life.
This is my belt. I earned this in blood, paid in full. This is mine.
Everyone gets knocked down, but fighters get back up.
You cannot break me, I promise you.
Adversity is the road to victory. Sacrifice is the price for glory. The very struggle for survival is the fight for greatness.
Rogers TV.
Welcome back to In Conversation with Alethia. We're picking up the conversation after some minor technical difficulties, but nevertheless, we are here continuing the conversation with Dewitt Lee. So prior to the break, we talked about Emancipation Month. I have to comment that, oftentimes great leaders have to stand alone to get things done. And that's exactly what you did in order for us to be able to celebrate Emancipation Month here in Canada. So thank you for your leadership. I also want to touch on the fact that Emancipation Day itself was already proclaimed and submitted by someone else. So we just want to make sure that we're doing the due diligence and not taking credit for someone else's work. So thank you for sharing that and for inspiring us when it comes to Emancipation Month. So over to you, Dewitt. I know you're anxious to say a few words.
Well, I appreciate that. And you find out what you're made of, when you look around and the dust is cleared and you found out that, the rock, all it took was one rock. David picked up 3 rocks against Goliath and all he needed was one. And, so there's a famous quote from Frederick Douglass that I use all the time, which is me plus God is a majority. And wow. So I always feel like regardless of who's there with me, I know, who I'm there representing. And I always have great expectations of coming through victorious for his glory. But, it made me much more intentional when it comes to working with the next generation, those who are following in my footsteps and the footsteps of so many others, because I know how important it is to have that leadership. To have, especially when I was running for office and I get a chance to meet young men and women who are running for office, I always like to take time with them because I know when I was, just entering into certain rooms for the first time, it always helped to have someone, see me, to support me, to acknowledge me. There's someone who I credit with, really being a driving force around me, my confidence building and that's Mr. Garnet Manning from Brampton. He was running for mayor at the time, and he acknowledged me as like a mayor candidate, like a legitimate mayor candidate. And it was the first time that I felt like someone who was really legitimate, who would go on record by acknowledging me as legitimate, what it did for me. So I'm always looking for opportunities to sow into others in that capacity. But Emancipation Month, it started off, like I said, it started off with this flag raising. But, we are grateful to be able to expand. That's the one thing that I do is I don't, I'm all about building bridges and engaging my community wherever they are. And so that led me to Burlington. And I met another great mentor named Dennis Scott. And he, embraced the Emancipation Month concept. He embraced the platform, and that's where the first proclamation was produced ever, right? And that's something that I authored. I co-authored that proclamation that has the mayor's signature on it, and to be able to see some of my words in a document that I revered and that I have a great respect for, to me, it just really was, a seed being really nourished and growing, because it's like, wow, I can really impact history. Absolutely. I can really put my words that represent my community, my culture, my generation. I can infuse that with, proclamations, and that led me to, seeking a law. And wow. that's why, Queen's Park, just 2 years ago, the Emancipation Month Act, Bill 75 was passed in record fashion. We're talking about 2 days. A bill passed in 2 days. It received the first, second, and third reading in 1 day, and then received royal assent on the second, making it a law. And forever and ever, Emancipation Month will always be recognized in Ontario. And now it's time to, in the same year, we got the city of Buffalo to acknowledge Emancipation Month. So that's the first U.S. city. Because the thing about Emancipation Month is that it's not just about what happened to those who were enslaved under British colonial rule, but it's talking about the entire global emancipation experience of people of African descent. So that includes the Arab slave trade. That I even talked about.
Wow.
That happened long before British ships and Spanish ships started extracting our greatest commodity from Africa, which is our people. And so, and so these are things that have to be told. And so this month is like a contribution towards the International Decade of People of African Descent, which this is the last official year of this 10-year dedication. And to me, I feel like that this is a Canadian export to the world. When all the countries sit down at the table and say, all right, what did you produce? What did you produce during this decade? What lasting legacy did you leave for the next generation to inherit so that they can use it as a tool to express themselves and to fight for the equities that they see fit? And to me, Emancipation Month is the platform that Canada can put on the table and say, well, we changed the month of August to Emancipation Month, and now we use it a month to talk about, healing, reparations, and everything else in between.
Amazing, amazing. And I love the fact that, in all of the accomplishments that you've achieved and the hard work that you've put in, you're taking the time to recognize others who were part of their journey. And above and beyond that, you're taking time to appreciate the fact that someone else was in your corner, giving you that support, giving you that pillar to stand on so that you can have the confidence to go out and do what you needed to do. And as a result, you're now sowing those seeds for the next generation to be able to leverage from. So that is powerful. And that's essentially what community is all about, right? Being there for each other, looking out for each other, and most importantly, setting a foundation for that next generation. Now, I want to transition a little bit, Dewitt, because we don't have enough time, but I really want to take time to focus on another initiative that is absolutely inspiring, and it takes place right across the border. And this is specific to the Jefferson 10. And so, and 2 years ago, there was a mass shooting in Buffalo. And as a result, as the name says, Jefferson 10 individuals sadly passed away as a result. So I should say murdered as a result.
Yeah. Murdered, gunned down by a white domestic terrorist.
Right. But I think where I want to go with this is, the important part about it is, as a result of that tragedy, you were able to rally a group of individuals together to, I think it was Brian's Clothier. And so with that, you were able to provide suits to young men in general, to be able to go out and participate in the funeral services for these individuals. And that essentially inspired a revolution of sorts. Can you just touch on that and the importance around St. Brian's Clothier and work around?
Yes, of course. Well, thank you for giving me an opportunity to continue to promote the legacy of the resiliency of this Buffalo community, and as we continue to cherish and honor the lives that were taken, the 10 individuals who were killed in the supermarket here in Buffalo, New York. I was here. The pandemic made me pick a side, right? It shut down the border, and I had to decide which part of the country, part of the world I was going to live in. And so with my mom still living here in Buffalo, I decided to be here with her, to help her get through that. And I ended up, really getting deeply embedded here in this community now. And I always describe myself as Toronto born, but Buffalo built. Nice. And so, being here in the community, I actually, a year prior to it, I just started to buy suits. I was buying suits, and I didn't know what was going on, but I would go to thrift stores and I would just buy suits a couple times a week, and got so much that I had to put it in a storage unit. And then I decided to turn my storage unit into a store, sort of a speakeasy of sorts, where it was like, you got to know somebody to know somebody to get into my store. And so I had this large inventory of suits, and, we had a constant focus on providing suits to men who needed it for jobs, for job interviews, or for court. And so my colleagues in the community would always reach out to me, and we would always have these private fittings for men who needed suits for some occasion. And when the tragedy happened, everyone was on the ground trying to figure out what we can do and how we can help our community heal. And I said, well, I got suits. And we were fortunate to get a space for 2 days just to do a 2-day pop-up to provide free suits to men in the community. And the news, started sharing that information, and then people just start contributing. And and they never stop contributing. And, and I've received calls every single day from people who have suits who want to give. We've dressed thousands of men, and the impact that happens instantly when a man is wearing a suit is the most drastic transformation, in a person's attitude I've ever seen. I've ever seen. It's just instant transformation. Once a week or so, I get a chance to dress the men in the city mission here in Buffalo, and it's unbelievable how someone goes from feeling pretty down and out and hopeless even, to all of a sudden a suit gives them the sort of a drive to pursue something, to get in pursuit of something. Like you could just see the motivation and the inspiration, returning to them, and then they start inspiring each other, and they're encouraging each other, and they're and it just creates an atmosphere that is really electric and exciting. And and it's just a suit, but it really does make a difference. And I do personally take a lot of care in putting the suit on you, right? So it's the conversation that happens. Like when we dress you, we get to address what's bothering you, right? Yeah. And so during that moment, it's intimate. It's very intimate. I'm in your space. I'm buttoning your buttons and I'm tying your ties, and it's intimate. And someone's serving you, tying your shoelaces. And during that time, a trust is built pretty quickly. And then I get an opportunity to, just be a listening ear and, provide whatever kind of, what kind of wisdom that I can share with them. But, I end up benefiting the most from it just because the experience is so enriching and rewarding for myself.
Oh my gosh, that is so incredibly inspiring, Dewitt. And that. And one of the things that I love about, the work is the fact that you're taking such pride in caring for these individuals. So thank you. And we are unfortunately at the end of our segment. And, as always, these conversations are incredibly inspiring, but I want to take a moment to thank you for empowering our community. Thank you for continuing to build a community within a community by helping these men. And thanks for having a conversation with me. It has been
Thank you. Thank you so much. I really did appreciate it. Thank you for giving us a platform. Happy Black History Month to you.
Yes.
And I do encourage everyone to go to dewittlee.ca to get information about our Black History Month at Queen's Park this February, and the other initiatives. And also happy Lincoln Alexander Day. That's the beginning of this month as we celebrate all these historical men and women from our community. So that's important. Let's not forget that.
Amazing. And thank you so much. And we will be having Black History Month celebrations right here in Dufferin County as well. So thank you once again, Dewitt. And at this time, I'd like to say a special thank you to Town Tees for our latest design, and thank you to Moonstone by MA for the amazing jewelry. Thank you for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Connect with us by visiting our website or email us at comments@rogerstv.com.